This is a presentation from Winchester Academy.
All right, I like that. Good evening, and welcome to Winchester Academy's Fall Series. I am Kate Saunders, and I'm a trustee on the Winchester Academy Board. Please silence all of your phones and alarms and all kinds of things that we have today so we don't interrupt our program. And thank you all for coming this evening. In appreciation for your attendance, we are holding a drawing for a $25 Waupaca Area Chamber of Commerce gift certificate. So if you haven't already, there's some cards over on there it is, and on the table there. And just sign the back of the card along with your email address or a phone number and drop it in the jar. And we will have a drawing tonight before you leave. And all of these entries are going to be pooled together so that each program from this fall series will have a grand prize drawing of $50 at our final program on November 28th. So put your name in so that you get a chance to win a $50 gift certificate. We've developed a terrific lineup of programs for our winter-spring series starting in February. So if you're not already on our mailing list and would like to receive program notifications, there's a sign-up sheet over there on that refreshment table also. Please sign your name, address, email, so we can be in contact. The Lifelong Learning Series of the library is sponsoring Synergy Home Care and presenting a program called Protecting Yourself and Your Identity tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning right here in this room. So if you're interested in that, please come. Winchester's next program is 2 weeks from tonight on Monday, November 28th, where storyteller and Winchester Academy favorite Rochelle Pennington returns with her presentation on the hidden history of Charles Dickens. So you're going to have a chance to Christmas Carol. So please note that this will be a 75-minute program, a little longer than our usual 60-minute program. Has a lot to tell us about Charles Dickens and the program. So we have some vacancies also on our Winchester Board of Trustees. If you are interested in serving as a board member, please contact any of the board members here tonight or contact us at winchesteracademy@gmail.com. We would definitely welcome some new members to our board. Tonight's hospitality host is Linda Casera. Where did Linda go? She's in the back. Give her a hand. Thank you, Linda. And let's thank the sponsors for tonight's program, Rich and excuse me, Florence Diddle, and thank them so much for sponsoring tonight's program. Our speaker tonight is Tim Lenke. He is the owner of Adventure Outfitters, which is almost directly across the street from us here, and having spent over 20 years in the fitness industry as an author, a speaker, and a personal trainer. He opened his business here in 2013 to help people get active by providing sales, service, and outfitting of outdoor gear such as kayaks, paddleboards, bicycles, snowshoes, and cross-country skis to local people and to people who visit the area. How many of you have something you've purchased from Adventure Outfitters? All right.
Thank you.
Tim is happy. Tim has lived in Waupaca area since he was 10 years old. Found that out today. And he has stayed in the area. He received his bachelor's degree in biology from UW Stevens Point and a master's degree in exercise physiology from UW La Crosse. So let's give Tim a warm Winchester Academy welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I appreciate being out here. Thanks for coming out on a chilly evening. There's definitely snow in the air and snow coming tomorrow. So for some people that's exciting, and other people it's not so exciting. They want to just head south and get out of here. But I'm thankful to be here. You know, I look back at some of the programs that the Winchester Academy has done over the months, and I see some pretty incredible people coming out to teach and programs, and I'm just honored to be out here tonight. And I thank you that you had asked me be out here, and I look forward to talking about this type of stuff. I can spend all night talking about this stuff's my passion. So it's going to be It's going to be a challenge to keep this inside of an hour, but I'm going to do it because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. There's all kinds of fun slides that we're going to look at. So I titled it tonight, Finding Your Adventure in Waupaca. And for those of you, who live in the Waupaca area, you know what an incredible area it is. From Chain to Main, it's just a beautiful place. Such a vibrant downtown we have now with all the different events, the activities, and everything that goes on at the Chain and beyond that. It's a great place to live. And so that's what I titled Finding Your Adventure in Our Area, Waupaca. And one of the things that I want to clarify a little bit before we dig into this really deep is what is adventure? How do we define adventure? And I think that for a lot of folks, they think of this dangerous, excite the senses type of activity. Things that might be like bungee jumping or rock climbing or skydiving, whitewater rafting, all those types. And you'd be right, that certainly is adventure. Or maybe for some it's traveling to far out exotic places. And yep, you're right also. That is what adventure is. But for tonight, I want us to take a look at adventure maybe in just a little different light. Let's maybe tone it down a little bit, and let's look at adventure as something that for you might be new, something that you might do that's different, something you might find exciting or fun in your perspective. Okay, that's how we want to look at this tonight. So we're going to find our adventure in Waupaca, and we're going to do it via the silent sports. How many of you have heard the phrase silent sports? Okay, so we got quite a few of you, some not. So silent sports, quite simply, and you could pretty much see it right out there. It's kayaking, paddleboarding, it's bicycling, it's snowshoeing, it's cross-country skiing, it's hiking. It's all those things that you do with no motors. There's no crowds, but it's physical activity in the outdoors. It's just you in the outdoors. It might be you and your spouse in the outdoors, you and your family, you and your friends in the outdoors, enjoying what nature has. And there's so much of that here. But there's also some benefits to it, to the silent sports. We live in an age right now where there's so much busyness. There's so much hustle and bustle. There's demands on our time. And if you have, one of these right here, it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. I mean, there's texting, there's emails, there's social media. All that stuff kind of grabs our attention. But the beauty of the silent sports is that you can take that stuff and you can disconnect. You can unplug from it all, and you can go out and maybe you had a hard day at work or just had a hard day with whatever you were doing. You can get out and just think paddling out on a nice calm lake in your kayak. Sun is just coming, it's ready to set, no wind, you hear the birds chirping, and you can just sit there and go, I can just relax, get rid of all that stress. So stress reduction is a great way the silent sports can help you. But another thing, it's physical activity. The silent sports are physical activity. And the beauty of these is it's a lifetime activity. It's not something that you can do just for a short period of time in your life, like football or basketball or hockey. Those are things that we do early on in life, and every one of us in this room are all way past that. But the silent sports are a lifetime activity. They are things that you can do in your 60s, into your 70s, into your 80s, and yes, even into your 90s. I know of someone who's riding their bike still regularly in their 90s. So it's something that we can enjoy for a long period of time with wonderful physical benefits to it. So my goal tonight for us is I want to be your outfitter, your personal outfitter, and tell you the how, what, why, and where of finding adventure via the silent sports in the Waupaca area. You guys ready to roll with this? All right, awesome. So the first one we're going to look at here is kayaking. So kayaking is something that has just, over the last 10 years, has grown dramatically, and especially in the last 2 years with COVID, it's grown exponentially. I mean, every time in the summer you go down the road, go down the highway, you're likely to see some kayaks on the top of vehicles. Am I right? They're everywhere. I mean, everything from real inexpensive ones to real expensive ones. they're out there and you see them often. And the nice thing about kayaking is it's something that so many people can do. The hardest part of kayaking is getting in and out of the thing. that can be a challenge. So, sometimes we say, well, once you are new to kayaking, go to the landing when it's not many people there, so you can get in and out and kind of figure the whole thing out. But it's just, and we have such a wonderful area here in Waupaca to get out there and actually kayaking. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of different styles of kayaks. So I wanted to touch a little bit on that so you kind of understand if you're looking to get into kayaking, there are some things that you want to really know. I kind of broaden into three major categories of kayaking. So you have recreational kayaking. That's the type of kayaking that we see around our area. Pretty much everywhere, 95% of the kayaks that we see are recreational kayaks. They're ones that they're very stable. You're not going to find that they're going to tip a lot. Generally, they're made of a polyethylene or a plastic type thing, so they're very, very durable. They come in different lengths, anywhere from as little as 8 feet in length, which is more of a youth kayak, to say up to 12 or 14 feet when you're talking a recreational kayak. The next level is a sea kayak. So those are ones that you're going to see more often on some of the bigger water, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, areas like that. And the difference in the sea kayaks is that they're much narrower. They're tight and they're longer. You might find them 16 feet, 17 feet, 18 feet in length. And they're very, very light. And they're designed that way so that you can get from point A to point B fast. Because just think about it. You're on big water like, say, Lake Superior. You don't want a smaller boat that's going to be wavering a lot. And that's one of the things that recreational kayaks, they will kind of waver at the shorter that they are. So when you get into a sea kayak, something that's long, 16, 17, 18 feet, they knife through the water. Really nice. Okay? And then there's the whitewater kayak. So that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. So whitewater, and I think whitewater is something that people get that stereotype. This is what kayaking is all about. It's like whitewater, you're wrapped into the kayak, and if you tip over, you're underwater like that. That's whitewater kayaking. It's not necessarily recreational kayaking. Whitewater kayaks are much shorter. They could be 6 feet. 7 feet in length, because they're made to maneuver around rocks. They're made so that if you do hit rocks and tip over, you can roll right around and come back up. So those are your primary types of kayaks, recreational being the most common style that we find here in the Waupaca area. And when you're looking into something, 10 feet is kind of a standard length kayak. It's easy to transport. It tends to be a little bit lighter. They track through the water in the chain of lakes really nice. They'll go fairly straight. 12 feet, between 10 and 12 feet is usually a good range for the areas around here. So paddles and PFDs. So there are a number of accessories that you can get. Of course, paddle being one of them. And I get, a lot of times they'll buy a kayak and they'll be like, well, I'm just going to kind of get a really cheap paddle because I spent a bunch of money on a kayak, so I'm just going to get something really simple. But one of the things that I highly recommend is that when you do go kayaking, a good paddle, really is going to make a pretty significant difference. One that's comfortable, one that's the right length, one that will fit you the best, one that might be light, that's easier on the shoulders. The length of a kayak paddle that you want really depends on the width of the kayak, and it depends on your height. So the wider the kayak, the taller you are, the longer the paddle that you're going to want in there. And there are different styles of, we can get into some really depth with paddles. I'll just kind of do a flyover tonight, but I do recommend a really nice paddle because it's much easier on your shoulders and your joints. And I could pass this around, but this is kind of a standard paddle. Paddles are made in a number of different styles, like aluminum. This is an aluminum shaft paddle. Some paddles are made in fiberglass, and then other paddles are made in carbon fiber. So as you go from aluminum to fiberglass to carbon, they get lighter. And the lighter the paddle really can make a significant difference in the experience that you have while you're kayaking. So I'll break this apart, and then you can kind of feel, I'll pass it along, and you can kind of feel the weight of it. The grip in the paddle makes a difference as well, how that works. This is an example of a carbon fiber paddle. So you're going to feel and see that this one is a little bit lighter. It's got a different feel on the grip. And all that makes a difference over the course of time. If you're going to be paddling for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you want to have something that's comfortable on your hands. And so you can see, I'll pass that one out. Like that. So that's the carbon fiber shaft there. So choosing a paddle is actually very important. It can make or break the experience that you have while you're out there kayaking. So I do recommend something that's lightweight, something with a grip that's comfortable on your hands so that you enjoy. Because the whole idea of the kayaking is you want to get out there and you want to enjoy. You want to do this for a lifetime. Do I need a PFD? PFD is a personal flotation device. Yes, you make sure you want to have one in your kayak, and I would have to say that you should wear it all the time, although if you see me out there on the lake, I don't often wear it, but it is in the boat. If you are unable to swim, definitely have it on. If you're river kayaking, it is also a good idea to have it on because the water is very strong. It's very forceful. If you tip over, you want to have that flotation on you. So the paddle, the PFD, all very important for kayaking. Now, where can we go kayaking in the area? Well, I think everyone knows that the Chain of Lakes, of course, is a wonderful area to go. A lot of people that come to our area, they ask, well, where's a neat, quieter place to go? The Upper Chain of Lakes is just a beautiful area. This particular picture I took, I'm in Morrow Lake, and I'm going into the channel that leads into Pope Lake. One of the beautiful things about Morrow Lake is the color. A lot of people who come into the area, they'll say, oh, I want to go to that lake that has all this color. And Morrow Lake is it. The way the light reflects on the limestone base of the water, it's just beautiful on a sunny day. This picture I took in the fall, so you can see the leaves starting to change. And then as you move through the upper chain, you have Morrow Lake, and then there's Pope Lake, which is the next one. Pope Lake is the only lake on the chain that has no homes on it. Any quick guesses why? Yes, state park land surrounds it, right. So you can go out there, and that actually is my favorite lake to visit. I'll go out there and just paddle. You come out there in the morning. It's quiet. It's peaceful. You hear the geese flying by. Usually if you get out there early enough in the summertime, you can get out at 5:30 in the morning. No one's out there, and it's just a great lake to paddle. And then you've got Manaman Lake and Night Lake and Orlando Lake. Those are all the 5 that are considered the Upper Chain of Lakes. Beautiful place to go. Of course, you can go on the rest of the chain, the 17 others of the 22, and there you can still paddle, but you're going to have to deal with motorboats and jet skis and tubers and all that kind of stuff. So that's why these 5 lakes in the upper chain, they're quiet because although you can have a motor out there, you don't see them. The boat landings are just too shallow, and you just don't see that out there. So lake kayaking, beautiful opportunity, especially if you're new to kayaking. I recommend starting on the lake because you don't have to worry about any obstacles. You don't have to worry about any flow, river taking you through. And that leads me to the next one, the river. So I actually personally like river kayaking because the beautiful thing about that is every turn there's something different. You never know if you're going to come around the corner and there's a doe and her fawn feeding in the water. Or you come around the next turn and there's some ducks, some wood ducks, beautiful wood ducks flying off. Or you might see an otter swimming through or some turtles sunning themselves on the logs or rock. Just a real beautiful opportunity to get out and see something different with every turn. And the Crystal River, for us, starts at Long Lake, and then it goes all the way, and it actually dumps into the Waupaca River. There are several segments of the Crystal River that you can break apart. I want to mention there is this silent sports guide that is available to everybody. These are free. We have them at our shop. You also can get them from the Chamber of Commerce. And this little guide is a way to take a look and see where you can put in your kayak, where you can take out your kayak, about how much distance it might be, how much time it might take you to go that certain distance. But these are really very useful and very, very helpful. One of the most common segments people will take is to go into rural, in the little village of rural, go through there. And the area in rural can have some rapids. So you want to be a little bit careful if you put in that area. There are some spots between rural and Parfreyville. Anyone who's lived here for any length of time probably knows Parfreyville Rapids from the Dings Dock canoe trips. Locals will sit down in the water and they will watch as the canoes used to come down and tip over in the rapid areas there. So that segment can be a little bit challenging. Now once you go from Parfreyville, there's just a little ways down, there's a new landing that's right off of Highway K called the George and Louise Woods Canoe Launch. Beautiful launch. The city and county put in a lot of effort into that launch. It's easy to get in. Parking is wonderful. Good spot to put in because you put in there and for the next 10 minutes of paddling, you're able to go really easy because it used to be the lake, if you remember. For those who have been here for a while, you remember that was dammed up. And now once they took the dam out, it opened it up. So that's a nice segment. Then you go past the Red Mill, and then you can take it all the way down to Shadow Lake. So from about the George and Louise Woods Park to Shadow Lake, for the average person, about 2 hours is what it takes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. Some can do it a little bit faster. But the waters from say, the Red Mill down to Shadow Lake tend to be a little bit easier once you get past the woodsy area near the Conservation Club. So the Crystal River is a wonderful place to go. Next one, we have the Waupaca River. So the Waupaca River can be a little bit more challenging. It's very unique, though. I mean, the Waupaca River has a lot of character to it. You'll paddle along, and there's little islands that you kind of go around, and little inlets that go off the side. It's a beautiful river. Can be more challenging, as I mentioned. The most common course that people will go on the Waupaca River is they put in at Cobbtown Road and Highway Q, so that's west of town. Put in there. There's a beautiful area to launch there. And then you take it all the way down to Brainerd's Bridge Park right here in town. That's about an 8-mile kayak run. And generally speaking, it takes most people about 3.5 hours. I've had people do it faster, and I've had people take about 5 hours to do it. So when you're on that run on the Waupaca River, there are some challenges. If you've been down there, you know where the covered bridge is. Once you get past the covered bridge, there tend to be some rapids. And so you look at this picture here. This picture I took back in 2019. If you guys remember, there was a big storm that we had in July of 2019 that did a lot of damage to the area. It did a ton of damage to the Waupaca River. I mean, there were trees down everywhere. So I'll go down and I'll do some cleaning and try to help things out. But this was a picture that I took. I was downstream looking up. This was after I cleaned it. So when I came down in my kayak and I went through almost like a tunnel, a chute through the trees trying to get through this, and I remember coming out of these trees and all of a sudden there was a tree right down in front of me. It's like, I grabbed onto that branch and stopped myself, and that's why I pulled off and then did some cleaning in the river. But the Waupaca River is a little bit more challenging. So if you're looking at getting involved in river kayaking, be a little bit more careful as you get into the Waupaca River. So this winter kayaking, probably some of my favorite kayak trips, most interesting kayak trips were winter. Now, I've got to put a disclaimer up. It's not for everybody. You got to be careful. The water is in the 30s. Hypothermia can set in really quick. But it is a beautiful opportunity to get out there, especially when you kayak after the snow has fallen. It just glistens on the trees and on the shoreline. It's very different. So, I mean, definitely if you ever consider winter kayaking, it's got to be something you do after you've had some experience out there. So one of my friends and I did a trip a couple of winters ago. It was in March we did this trip. And this is on the Waupaca River. And it was after a season where we had a lot of cold, but then we had some melting, and the water level was up from after the big storms of 2019, and we just did an amazing float down the river. These ice shelves, it's hard to see here, but those ice shelves actually go in about 10 feet in. I mean, you could almost tuck yourself under there. That's how far back they go. And it was just a really cool experience. We did the Waupaca River all the way down. Our goal was to get to Brainerd's Bridge Park. And the water was good. It was open most of the way. The top right picture, though, right up here, you can see, well, we got very close to Brainerd's Bridge Park, and it closed up on us. So we're like, oh, no. Fortunately, right where we pulled out here is the beginning of the River Ridge Trail. So we were able to pull the kayaks right up onto the shore and basically just drag them, an eighth of a mile to Brainerd's Bridge Park. So really some neat experiences out there kayaking, and not that you're going to be going out in the winter or necessarily going on rapids, but to get out and to enjoy it maybe on a lake, to get especially sunrise, sunset, it's a beautiful time to get out there. Next up is paddleboarding. Paddleboarding isn't as popular as kayaking, maybe because it's a little bit more challenging for folks. You have to have a little bit more balance standing up on the board. But paddleboarding does bring it really is enjoyable to get out there, especially during the June, the July, and the August months when it's warm out. There are a number of different types of paddleboards, not nearly as many as you'll see kayaks. Paddleboards primarily, for the most part, probably 95% of paddleboards you see out are recreational. So they're more stable. They're 10.5 feet in length is your standard stand-up paddleboard. You could find some that are longer, 12 and 14 feet, but those are more touring boards for those they actually do have races, paddleboard races and things like that. Most of what you see around here and most of what anybody would ever want in this area would be something like this, a 10.5-foot stand-up paddleboard. What makes a paddleboard more stable is the width. So the wider a paddleboard is, it becomes more stable, and then the more volume it has. So the thicker the board is, you're going to find it to be a little bit more stable. Paddleboards won't hold as much weight necessarily as with some kayaks. Generally with a paddleboard, 240 to 250 pounds is probably getting to the top end before things start to really get tippy on a paddleboard. So that's the types. The paddles, of course, are a little bit different than your kayak paddles. They have the blade on only one side like this. And a lot of times people ask, well, why is it bent like that? And that's just for ergonomics. It just makes it easier to paddle and pull. You don't have to reach as far back. But this particular paddle, this is a carbon fiber paddle. So when you grab this, I'll pass it around. Super light. Again, same thing with paddles. You want to find something that's light, because when you're paddling, you're always up here. You're in this motion. So you can see your arms are up. If you have a paddle that's heavy, it makes it more challenging. You get fatigued much faster. So having a light paddle when you paddleboard definitely is an important thing to consider on that. Most paddleboards are hardboards. They're made of fiberglass or they're made of a polyethylene type plastic. There are inflatable paddleboards out there. Inflatable paddleboards are a great thing if you have no means of transporting a regular hardboard. So generally, if you're looking for a board and you have the ability to transport or store it at your house, the hardboard is a better one. It moves quicker through the water. They tend to be a little bit more stable than that. Where do you go when we'll pack a paddleboard? Well, the same thing as kayaking. The Upper Chain of Lakes is, again, a wonderful area. And one of the things that's really neat about paddleboarding is that if you can get out in the early season, like late May, early June, because of the height that you're at and you look down, it's a great time of the year to see a lot of fish. Paddleboard along the edges of the shorelines. You can see fish just coming in off of their beds. It's really a wonderful opportunity to see, especially in the late May time period. But also paddleboards on a hot summer day are nice because you can slide off them and slide back on them, kind of like a swimming board. Whereas if you try to do that with a kayak, it definitely gets a lot more challenging to try to get back in. And there are classes you can take on how to get back in the kayaks. Night paddleboarding. So one of my favorite things to do is, is to go out on a paddleboard at night. We used to do these tours on the upper chain of lakes at night where we fixed LED lights underneath the paddleboards. So you can imagine a nice dark night and you're out there and these lights just illuminate. What was the most unique thing was when we talked about the upper chain in Pope Lake and Morrow Lake. It was getting on these boards and seeing everyone ahead of you and then going from Pope Lake into Morrow. Because Morrow Lake is so different in its bottom, as soon as we got into Morrow Lake, that light would just illuminate. And it would go out 10 to 15 feet around the boards. It was almost mesmerizing in a way when you got in a mix of 6 or 7 paddleboards. In fact, I've had people that almost, they kind of lost their balance because it was so bright with the blue and the green, and we've even had like red color boards as well. You can buy the lights to put on the boards, but nighttime really offers a really cool opportunity. And even if you don't have boards that are lit like these are underneath, to have a headlamp at night and make sure you go on the upper chain, which is much safer. But to have a headlamp on, it's just a really unique experience to go out there to hear the owls hooting, or if you go out on a full moon, it's something like never before. Next up, we have bicycling. So this is my passion. I love bicycling more than any other of the silent sports. There's so much to bicycling. We're just going to kind of just do a quick overview on this, but bicycling is a great opportunity. I know I talked to a lot of folks before we started about biking. It's a great opportunity to be active without having that impact on your joints, right? Hiking or snowshoeing or jogging, you have that impact. This, you don't have the impact, which is really nice. And there's a lot of different styles of bikes. We're going to take a look a little bit. So the different options that you could have. So up here, road biking. I could probably do a whole talk on just bikes and the styles of bikes and what will be best for you and why there are the differences that they are. But road biking is one option. So of course, just as the name implies, that bike needs to stay on the road. What makes that bike unique for the road is it's got real skinny tires. So it's very efficient. It can be very fast. They're a little bit more aerodynamic, but made just for the roads. And then you've got to the right here, mountain biking or off-road riding. That is my favorite. That's my passion. The bikes are totally different. Mountain biking, they have to be different because when you're off-road riding, you're riding across dirt, roots, rocks, stones, all kinds of grassy areas. Tires tend to be wider. They might be 2.5 inches wide. The handlebars are wider. They're more stable so that you can handle the terrain that you're riding on. And then if you look down bottom left, there's a combination of the both, gravel bikes, or if you want to call them hybrid bikes. So those are bikes that are made, of course, for the road. They do well on the road, but also off-road, but a light off-road. They aren't something that you would take on a trail that has roots and rocks, but they are fine for a trail that you would take on gravel or grassy two-track areas. So it's a nice combination. That the hybrid style is a very popular style bike right now because people can do a little bit of both. And then the bottom right, fat tire bikes. So just to give the perspective, the tires on those bikes, so a normal mountain bike, an off-road bike, the tires might be 2.5 inches wide. The tires on these fat bikes, 5 inches wide. So they're almost like balloons. Yes, they're balloons. And they're made primarily for riding in the snow. They're also made for riding on the beaches down south and such. But most people are riding them up here, of course, on the snow. They work really well when the trail is packed, though. If you were to say we get 4 inches of snow tomorrow, and you jumped on a fat tire bike and said, I'm just going to ride down the road, it's not going to be a whole lot of fun. It's going to be squirrely. You're going to spin a lot. So these bikes, even though they say they're snow bikes, they're best made for trails that are groomed. And I have a picture of a groomed trail in just a little bit. But fat tire bikes, it's a great way to extend the season. I mean, we have people of all ages getting out and doing fat tire biking in the wintertime when the trails are groomed. It's a different perspective to ride a bike through the woods where there's snow on the ground and snow on the trees. And then, of course, the biggest craze, the electric bikes. I've had a lot of questions already tonight about e-bikes. E-bikes are made in different styles as well. You can get e-bikes that are a comfort style, meaning they're more of an upright cruiser type style. You can get e-bikes that are hybrid, so you can do a combination of both some road and some off-road. You can also get them in pure off-road. So there's a lot of varieties, just like there are in the regular style bikes. So like the upper right, that's a mountain e-bike, and for this particular model, the battery is right up in there, and the motor is down in between the cranks. This is more of a hybrid or urban style bike. Again, the battery is right in there with the motor down up in here. Some e-bikes will have hub motors. That means that the motors are in the back here. It depends on the manufacturer that you go with. Most of the big name bike companies are a motor that's right in here, right in between the pedals like that. So e-bikes, we can talk all night about those. The beauty of e-bikes is that it helps people who may not be able to get on a normal bike and ride for a long period of time. If there's hill areas that you live in, you get on an e-bike and you give it a little assist, and it's going to help you get up those hills. Most of the bikes will have 5 levels of assist. One very easy, 2, 3, 4, up to 5, that you can fly up a hill. Like for example, if you were to go up Fulton Street on one of these e-bikes on a level 5, you could ride up that hill without hardly breaking a sweat. And, you'll see people walking their regular bikes up the hill. With an e-bike, you can pop right up that with no problem. So they're really helpful in allowing people to go a little bit further, a little bit longer. My mom and dad are good examples. They both bought e-bikes several years ago, and they are now able to ride probably twice as long as they were before. My dad has asthma, so things were, it was challenging for him just to ride a bike. But now they can go longer. They don't have to worry about where they go because that assist is so very, very helpful. So e-bikes becoming very, very popular, and I'll be happy afterwards to take some questions about them. Where can you bike in the Waupaca area? A lot of great places. Hartman Creek State Park is one of them. That's a wonderful place. They offer a number of varieties of bicycling. So to the left, that grassy area, that'd be a great spot for either mountain biking or a hybrid style bike. And then in the top right, of course, fat tire biking. And you could see the trail. See how it's kind of carved? There actually is a groomer that's used on the trail that will go through and groom them so that they're packed down. And when this trail right here is just absolutely perfect. It's nice and firm, and you ride through the trees and through the curves. And then down below, you've got a single track trail that's called. So Hartman Creek State Park has 10 miles of single track trails that you could ride on. And same thing, the single track trails double for the snow bike trails, the winter trails as well. So all the same mileage is available there for biking. The Tomorrow River Trail, so this is a trail that goes all the way from Plover to Manawa. The easiest and closest point to access the Tomorrow River Trail is in Scandinavia, so just a few miles north. There is a parking lot as you're going into town to the right, just before the bridge. So this is the style of trail that it is. It's primarily gravel, fairly flat, so it's very easy to get on and ride a hybrid style bike or a mountain bike, or a number of e-bikes would work on here as well. But it is kind of an out and back type situation. So if you were to go in Scandinavia, you'd maybe whether you go east or west, you're going to come back and do the same thing because it's one big long trail. And then the walking trail right over by the high school, it actually starts right down the road here at the end of Main Street, goes all the way into King next to the Chain Bar and Grill. It's about 4 miles of trail there, and it's all paved. So if you don't want to worry about gravel or any slipperiness, it's a great opportunity to get out there with almost any style of bike and ride. So just over 4 miles for that particular trail. And then there's road rides. So in this book, the Silent Sports Guide as well, we have 2 different routes that you can take, and they range anywhere from 22 miles up to about 30 miles that kind of guide you through the roads in our area. Different paths that you can take, but I mean, pretty much if you like to ride on the road, I mean, you got to be careful with the traffic in the summertime, of course, but you can go out anywhere, riding around the chain of lakes. You can go beyond the chain of lakes. I have one staff member that he's so into road riding. He finds all these new trails and directions that he goes, and whether it's east of town or north of town. In Iola, there's a little club that meets every Monday and Wednesday called Bike Iola. Greg Lesher leads those groups, and he takes people out on rides. And they generally go maybe 15-ish miles or so, and they do a no left behind type thing. So if you go with them, don't worry about being left behind. They're going to stick with you as they go. But they do those every Monday and Wednesday in Iola. They meet right downtown at that statue. So there are definitely opportunities to get out and bike, whether you want to just go on the road with a road bike or comfort bike, or you want to get out on the trails. Lots of opportunities in our area. Hiking, now I'll have to be transparent here. I'm not much of a hiker. I haven't done a lot of hiking, but we do have a lot of areas. If you can walk, you can hike. And if you want something different than just walking down the streets or around your block, getting out into some of the areas that the Waupaca area offers is really nice for something just a little bit different. You want to be careful. Make sure you have the right shoes, right tennis shoes, and that because as you're hiking, of course, there's going to be roots. There might be rocks that you want to be a little bit more careful and aware of. Hartman Creek State Park, of course, has got a number, I think it's like 13 miles of hiking trails contained within the park. One of the trails, the Deer Path Trail, goes around Allen Lake, and then there's another trail that goes past the Hope Lake and Morrow Lake of the upper chain. So very nice areas to walk there. The Ice Age Trail, so if any of you know anything about the Ice Age Trail, that's a 1,000-mile plus of trails that encompass the state of Wisconsin. They're all, it's all volunteer taken care of. There's a number of segments that are in the Waupaca area, and those are in this book. And generally the segments that you can take from start to end, 2.5 to 3.5 miles. So it's not like you have to go a long distance. You can go from one spot to the next to the trailheads. But the Ice Age Trail is an amazing endeavor that volunteers have put together, and it may just it's well kept, and it really is enjoyable. The River Ridge Trail, which is over in Swan Park, that's a nice area to hike as well. You can get just about 3 miles of hiking over there, kind of going behind the sledding hill and back around. You can go down by Brainerd's Bridge area there, right along the river. So it's really beautiful, especially during this time of the year as we get into the things freezing. You can kind of see the ice shelves forming on the rapids. Wonderful. And then, of course, the walking trail, which we talked about as far as biking. It's just a nice paved trail that's about 4 miles long. Winter season. All right, so we're getting there. We're almost there, right? We may see some snow tomorrow. So this is going to be very, very relevant right now. Winter season, most people think, Waupaca is a summer destination, and it is. But it's also a wonderful place to enjoy the outdoors during the winter time. One of those opportunities is in snowshoeing. And snowshoeing it's if you can walk, most of the time you're going to be able to get out there and go snowshoeing. And there's just nothing like getting out. It's like on this particular day, it was after a big storm we had a couple seasons ago, that the trees are just loaded with snow, and you walk through it just like it's almost magical walking through the forest and with the snow putting the pine trees down. Wonderful opportunity, and it's something that you can do. You don't need a particular trail for it. You can go out your back door if you have property, and you can snowshoe. Minimal equipment is needed to get out there and do some snowshoeing. So there's a lot of areas, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. But snowshoeing, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of sizing. So So these snowshoes, these are red feather snowshoes. They're made in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So one of the more popular brand snowshoes out there is made right in La Crosse. Snowshoes come in different lengths. This particular pair is a 22-inch. You see them also in 25-inch, 30-inch, and 36 inches. So they just get longer. Now, how you size a snowshoe for yourself doesn't have to do with what size foot you are, but rather how much you weigh. So the lighter you are, the shorter the snowshoe that you need. The heavier that you are, the longer you need. And it makes sense, right? If you're heavier, you need more snowshoe to displace the snow so you don't sink down quite as far. Like a 22-inch snowshoe, something like this, is for somebody that might weigh up to about 125 pounds. A 25-inch snowshoe, which is a little bit longer, is someone that is maybe in that 125 to 175 pound range. And then a 30-inch, you're looking at about 175 into 220. And then they do make 36-inch, which is a big snowshoe if you're 220 and above. So they really, they come in those different sizes. What's important is that when you do snowshoe, you want to find a boot that is comfortable, a hiking boot that's comfortable, a hiking boot that is waterproof, because obviously you're walking through the snow, you're going to get that in. So you want to have something that's not going to, or you're not going to rub your front of your toes on the boot, something that's just very comfortable to slide it in. Snowshoes come in different styles of bindings. This particular snowshoe that Red Feather makes is a binding that is more attached. As you can see, it doesn't lift as much. So the advantage of a binding that doesn't move as much compared to a hinge binding where it'll drop down like this, this type of snowshoe is one in which if you're going to go off into the woods and you have to step around trees or branches or you have to move side to side, this particular snowshoe will stay up with you a little bit more. But one of the things that some people will say that is because it stays with you, when you lift your foot up, sometimes it'll kick snow up on your back. So if you don't want to get a wet back end, then a hinge style binding, so that would be one that you hold and it drops down, it doesn't kick the snow up. But the challenge there is that if you do get off trail and you're walking around and you lift, you have to really lift your foot up high to get over any logs. So if you're kind of a backcountry snowshoer, those may not be the best type. So bindings that come in many different shapes and sizes. These particular bindings are very soft and very supple, but some of them I've found, and I'll pass these around, you can feel the weight of that. Some bindings can be very rigid and very hard, so you want to be careful with that because especially when it gets cold, that can dig in. So when your foot's in the boots, if that is very rigid, it's a very hard plastic, it digs in and it can irritate you a little bit. But I'll pass this around. You can see how light they are. There's not a lot of weight to them, so it's very similar, to hiking, but just a little bit more challenging. With snowshoeing, there kind of is a right amount of snow to have. So if you have a ton of snow, 12 inches, 15 inches, it gets pretty challenging. It's a heck of a workout, no doubt. So if you're in it for a workout, that's the way to go. But I think the ideal amount of snow, 3, 4, 5 inches, is really just that perfect amount to get the feel that, hey, you need snowshoes. You don't have to do it with just simply hiking boots. One other question that people often will have is the poles. Should I use poles when I snowshoe? And the answer is that's really up to you. I generally recommend to use trekking poles, and the reason for that is because it offers you an opportunity for balance. Okay, sometimes when you get into snow and it gets a little deep, you might lose your balance, and if you got that pole there to help you out, it could keep you from falling down. And when you fall down with snowshoes, it can be a little bit hard to kind of get back up, especially if the snow is deep. Some are laughing; they've been there and done that. So one of the things, other thing that's poles are really helpful for is also climbing hills. So if you're going up a hill, they give you that help to dig in going up the hill. And then also in a converse going downhill, they can be very helpful too because you can get that pole in front of you and allow you to stop because if there's enough snow, you find that you could slide, actually. Even though that the snowshoes, as you'll see there, have that big crampon on the front, that claw can still slide in deep snow. So the poles are really helpful. Then they also offer a really nice fitness component. As you're walking, you're moving your core, you're twisting, you can push off a little bit, and so there's a really nice fitness component to the trekking pole. When you set up a pole for snowshoeing, you want to set it up so that you are riding with your arm at about a 90-degree angle right here. This is the optimal setup for snowshoeing, would be right up in here. It's a little different than cross-country skiing, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So I'll pass this trekking pole around. You can see on that. What to wear. So one of the things that you want to understand when you're out in the wintertime, whether it's snowshoeing or cross-country skiing, what we'll talk about is that you don't want to dress too heavy. Even if it's in the 20s or 30, in the 30s, that's considered really warm because you got to think about you're moving and your arms are going, your legs are going. You're going to work up a sweat really fast, and if you're really bundled up, it's not going to be fun. You're going to be shedding clothes right away. What I generally recommend is some kind of a sweat wicking type clothing underneath, something that so they can take that sweat from your skin and push it to the next layer, something like a wool or a synthetic type that's going to push that away. So the bottom line when you're snowshoeing, don't dress too warm. You might be a little cooler at first, but once you get yourself going, you're going to work up enough heat in your body that you won't need that bulkiness of the extra clothes. So that's snowshoeing. Now, where can we go? Again, Hartman Creek Park. What a wonderful resource we have right in our backyard. There's so much to do, both summer and winter. But Hartman Creek Park has about 6 miles of snowshoe trails there, and they do groom them trails. So if you want something that's maybe a little bit easier, you don't want to have to trek through potentially deep snow, they groom the trails there so it's a little bit more packed down and a little bit easier to walk through, and it takes you through the woods and all around. They're really well marked trails there as well, so it's a really nice place to go. Of course, the Ice Age Trail. I really prefer the Ice Age Trail when snowshoeing. It's not groomed. So the only way it's packed down is if there were people before you that went. So if you want to get out there and really experience, like, hey, I'm way out there and I want to kind of blaze my own trail, you can get out into the Ice Age Trail, one of the segments in our area, and right after a snowstorm and get out there. And we've had, like this particular picture is on the Ice Age Trail in the Emmons Creek segment. So it winds around. I remember one time, a few years back, we happened to have a lot of snow late in the season, and I was walking through. The trail was carved like it is, So I mean, there was snow on the sides of us that were that deep. But then I'd go off the trail, and I remember going out almost into my thighs in the snow, kind of in the back is where the wind had blown the drifts, and it was fun for a little while until you get too far off, and then it gets challenging. But the Ice Age Trail is really a wonderful place to get out and snowshoe if you want something a little different, and there's so much opportunity, not only in Waupaca County, but beyond that. The River Ridge Trail, so you can see a lot of these parallel each other. The River Ridge Trail in town, if you don't want to go too far out, over by Swan Park, that's a nice area where you can get almost 3 miles of snowshoeing in. And then Iola Winter Sports Club, so if you go north of Iola about 6 miles or so, you're going to see the Iola Winter Sports Club. It's a wonderful place, especially for skiing, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But they do have some snowshoeing trails up there. I'm not exactly sure how many. It might be 3 to 5 miles of snowshoe trails up there. Just something different to go to if you want to seek out a different area on a different weekend. But snowshoeing is a great opportunity to get out. It doesn't take a lot of equipment, and it's something we can do in the wintertime. And of course, as I like doing stuff at night, headlamp snowshoe hikes. It's going to be dark at 4:30 pretty soon here, right? So if you want to get out in the evening, get a headlamp and get out on those trails. It's just a really unique opportunity. I can remember leading people on guided snowshoe hikes, people who may have come from the city, bigger cities, and we'll be going through the woods, and we'll get out into this open field on a crystal clear, cold night, and I say, just look up, and you look up, and the stars are just vibrant, And they tell me, what are those? Because they're not used to seeing that. But nighttime is, again, another wonderful opportunity to get out and try something because it gets dark so early. So you might as well take advantage of this. That's snowshoeing. Next up and the final type of silent sport we're going to look at is cross-country skiing. So cross-country skiing is a little bit more challenging than snowshoeing. It takes a little bit more coordination. It takes a little bit more skill, no doubt. But cross-country skiing is one of the best cardiovascular or aerobic activities out there. Your arms, your legs are moving. It's probably the best for your aerobic system. There are a couple different styles of cross-country skiing. So you've got, if you look up at the top, classic or what's called traditional cross-country skiing. So traditional cross-country skiing, there are a couple of different types of skis. This is an example of one. With traditional skiing, you could do waxable skis. So the bottom of it, you would have to wax. So essentially, if you look at a classic cross-country ski, there are two zones. Where my fingers are here, this is called the grip zone from here to here. That's where you grip so you can propel yourself forward. So classic skiing would be, as you see in that top picture, they're going forward, you're kind of striding yourself out. There's a grip zone. So you can get waxable cross-country skis that are traditional. So you would have to wax them with a grip wax in the middle here. So that allows you to grip and propel yourself forward. And then on the edges, then you would take and use a glide wax. So that's a lot of work for some. Most people are like, I don't have the iron or I don't have the wax, and the wax looks like this. I brought one in. It's just kind of a chunk of wax that you melt with an iron and you put it on the glide zones here. And then the grip zone is more of like a paste that you put on. They also make wax-less cross-country skis, and that's what this is here. So in this grip zone area here, and I'll pass this around, instead of having to wax it, it's got what we call fish scales. So they offer that grip for you, where you do not have to worry about doing the waxing on there. And most people, especially around here, they'll take the wax-less skis. The difference between a wax and a wax-less ski is they're maybe not quite as fast. Okay? With a wax ski, you can go a little bit quicker. But it's very important that when you wax a ski, I'll pass this around, you have to wax it in such a way that you know what temperature it's going to be outside. There are different colors of waxes that you want to get the right wax so that you can get the most speed out of your ski. The other style of skiing then would be skate skiing here. And you can see kind of the pattern. So if you know how like a hockey player skates like that where they're doing this, that's what the skate skiing would be like. And it is a little different style of ski for skate skiing. This is an example of a skate skiing ski. They tend to be a little bit shorter. They tend to be a little bit more rigid torsionally because you're pushing out to the side. So they're a little bit more durable in that case. And the other thing about a skate ski is that it's all wax. You have no choice. There isn't a waxless version of a skate ski. So if you're going to get into skate skiing, and people will do skate skiing maybe because it's a little bit faster. It's a little different motion. If you wax these, you have to be able to have the iron to wax them. You have to have the wax. You have to kind of know a little bit more about what you're doing to get involved with skate skiing. But they do tend to be faster than your traditional style skiing. And it is a little bit more challenging. Because with traditional skis like the one up there, if you're going up a big hill, you can kind of almost jog yourself up the hill if you want to. Whereas a skate ski, you have to do this motion. So it can get really, really challenging. Most of the people that we work with in our area here, they're doing a waxless classic ski like these ones on top. With traditional skiing, the classic, you can see these grooves in there, so a trail would have to be groomed for them so that you can glide in the tracks. You can still, if you wanted to, you could certainly do classic skiing right in this area as well. It's just a little bit easier when you have the tracks groomed like that. Skate skiing down here, with skate skiing you must have an area that is groomed and fairly wide because you've got that distance with the skis going out side to side to side like that. So depends on what type of skiing you're doing will depend on where you go. So in our area, again, of course, Hartman Creek State Park has some nice trails available. Now, one thing to note, Hartman Creek State Park is pretty much classic skiing only. Okay, so the traditional, you can see the tracks. This actually is a picture I took a couple seasons ago of Hartman Creek State Park. You can see the tracks in there. This is not wide enough here for skate skiing. Hartman Creek State Park, beautiful area to skate or to ski, can be a little bit challenging. There are some pretty nice hills out there, so be careful if you go out to Hartman's Park for that. Also, Standing Rocks County Park, which is just west of town over in Amherst area. They do a great job of grooming their trails. They have about 10 miles of groomed trails there, both skate and classic trails. And they also have a couple of, maybe a mile to two that's lit. So you can go there after dark, which is also very nice. They do a great job at keeping them up. And then Iola Winter Sports Club, I think probably one of the better places around our area to go. They have 3 different levels. They have green, which is beginner, blue, intermediate, and black advanced trails. About 10 miles of trails there. Some trails that are lit as well. So a wonderful place to go. There are fees, though, that you have to pay for Iola, and there are fees for Standing Rocks as well. I guess Hartman's, you have to have a park pass also. And then finally, the Waupaca Country Club. So this might be new to some of you. You may not know that the Waupaca Country Club, the county grooms trails over there. If you're looking to get going with cross-country skiing and you're fairly new to it, that's the place to go because it's fairly flat for the most part. There is one loop in the back that gets up a little bit higher, but it is mostly flat. It's groomed for both skate skiing and classic skiing, so you can do either style over at the Waupaca Country Club. And they have about a little over 3 miles that you can see. And it's a beautiful area, too, because you're going along the river. You're going over a couple bridges and stuff as you go. So a really unique area. And then I see Fred is here, right? Hartman Creek State Park, Candlelight Ski. So if you're looking for just something to do towards late February, they run just an incredible event with, 700 luminaries roughly that are lit up, and you can see these guys. They put a lot of work and a lot of effort into just a wonderful night. Mostly it's hikers and snowshoers, and I think this year you guys are not doing the skiing trails, right? Am I correct? Yeah, the weather's been a challenge. So a lot of people will just come out with, whether they just hike in boots or snowshoes. We offer snowshoes out there, but it's so unique. It's so neat to walk and hike through the woods with all these luminaries. They really do a good job. And at the very end, or the beginning, however you want to look at it, they have the warming house going. There's coffee, there's hot cider, there's cookies, there's warming fires out there to enjoy. Hammerschlagen, right? So you got that where you pound the spikes in. It's just a great part of being in this outdoor community. People are just hanging out, talking, and enjoying themselves, and it's just a wonderful event. There's so much, depends on the weather. But the last couple of years have been a wonderful turnout, and so many people out there to enjoy. So I just encourage you to just get involved with the silent sports. There's so many options between kayaking, biking, and snowshoeing, and skiing, and hiking. Our area is beautiful. We want to take advantage of what we have here in the Waupaca area. It is really very unique, and so enjoy that, and I'll take questions right now.